Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. I'm your host, Marguerite Crespillo, and I started this podcast simply dedicated to calling people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now, let's dive into the world of real estate. Hello. Guess what? It's the day before Valentine's Day, so I'm wearing red for Valentine's Day. And I'm very excited to have this very special guest on our show today. I have known this young man since he was about 4 years old because, you see, I married his dad. And he is my bonus son, and I'm very, very proud of him and all that he's done. Plus, he's given us five grandchildren. And our youngest, Joey the third, Joey 3, who we can't wait to see. But 5 grandkids, and he has grown up in the real estate industry along myself and his dad, Joe. And I've watched him really bloom over the last few years. He's done all kinds of stuff. He's done real estate, he's done commercial, he's done loans, residential, and lots of different things. And now he's actually venturing out into some breathwork stuff that he's going to talk about today that I'm really excited to hear about. But I just want to first say how very proud I am of the fine young man that he's turned into and what an honor it is to be his bonus mom. So please help me welcome everybody to Real Estate Real World, our son, Joseph Crespillo Jr.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm here for the callback. I love it. Episode 2. How many episodes are you on now?
What'd you say?
How many episodes are you on now?
We're almost to 200.
Wow.
I think we're in the 190s. I think close to 200. And I did take a couple of years off, we had some stuff happen in life. And so I took a little bit of a break, but we've had this show for 10 years, a little over 10 years now.
That's absolutely amazing. I guess massive action kills procrastination.
Yes, it does. I know we've talked about you getting your own show up, and I'm going to keep pushing you until you do, because Joey, we call him Joey. So just so you know, has a concept for a show called The Growth Addict, which is what his title says here on the podcast today. And I really feel like the world needs to hear that. So he's been talking about it for a while, and I've been pushing him. And I think we're going to just make sure that 2025 is the year that happens. What do you think?
I like it. The Growth Addict is actually morphing into a book. It will be a podcast, but I got, I think, about 7,000 words so far. So that's pretty cool. Speaking of procrastination, I found myself trying to be perfect, and I needed the perfect microphone, and I even downloaded the software and hosting and stuff like that. But it just gave me a reason to kind of put it on the back burner, like, oh, I'm not 100% ready. Whereas a book, it just seemed more kind of free form. I can write, and I actually feel like I'm doing it. But yeah, I definitely do want to do a podcast one day.
So it's funny, when we first started my podcast back in the day, we did it on freeconferencecall.com.
Yeah.
So it was literally a phone conversation, and the audio was horrible if you listen to some of the early episodes that we did. And then we finally moved on up to Skype at the time. Skype allowed us to do video and audio, and it was still terrible because you had to have a good internet connection, and many of the people that we interviewed didn't have great internet. And then we went to Zoom for a while, and now we're on StreamYard. So it works. I mean, no matter what it is, people are going to listen or they're not. And it's the content and the story that's more. Some people get super hung up in the sound quality and all, and I get it, but I couldn't tell you the difference between one or the other. I want to hear the content, not necessarily the actual sound. So the point is that it's progress over perfection, right? And you've learned that a lot in your career.
Yeah, the perfect time to start is now. Absolutely.
So what was it like growing up with a crazy real estate stepmom?
Oh, it was fun. I now have to do breath work to heal all my traumas. No, I love it. No, I had a beautiful upbringing. And yeah, it was fun. I mean, it turned me into kind of the entrepreneurial spirit. Like I don't think I'm destined for a 9 to 5 job at all. I don't think I ever will be. I
Yeah.
work sometimes even more than 9 to 5, but the freedom piece of it is even better than the money to me. uh, but just moving towards something. But yeah, no, I loved our childhood. I definitely miss California all the time, but I miss the trees.
Well, and your beautiful bride, Veronica Vero,
Mhm.
as we affectionately call her, what she's born and raised there in the El Paso area, which is where you guys live. Well, now you're living in New Mexico, right?
Yeah, it's still El Paso though. We're like on the border of El Paso, Santa Teresa, New Mexico, and Juarez as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And she was doing real estate and now she's doing loans, right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's doing loans. I'm doing loans as well. We're both at probably what I'd say one of the best companies here in El Paso to work with. They do a ton of new construction. So yeah, we've definitely been blessed this past year because I mean the ups and downs and the volatility of the market that we went through. So I mean before I joined my company, I had a discussion with myself if this line of work was even going to be feasible. But a buddy of mine got me the in over there, and it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing ever since. We can pay bills and buy
Well,
toys
it's
and
definitely hard when both spouses are in a commission only type business, you
Mhm.
know? I mean, I think that your dad and I, of course, did that for many, many years. And as long as there's two aspects of it. It's hard when you're both on commission, but it's also hard as a husband and wife to work together, right? Until
Mhm.
you kind of learn to, as we said it, learn to stay in your corner. Right?
Yeah.
So what you focus on, what you're good at, they focus on what they're good at, and then occasionally you can come together. But it can create, a lot of challenges in a relationship when you're both stressed about deal. It got to the point where it was better that your dad and I did not work together.
Oh, we went through that when Veta was doing real estate. It was, I was doing her loans, and if something happens on a file, I don't care if it's a borrower, issue. It's still me, And
Right.
then she would ask me for updates at like 10 at night, and I'm like, oh my god, like it's like you're sleeping with the enemy at that point. You don't want to give the update, but it got tough. We had I think we did do a couple of her deals with somebody else, and just to see it. But then naturally you see like the money you're leaving off the table and stuff like that. But yeah, even just being both commission, I think the blessing of it is she understands my schedule, I understand her schedule.
So
I'm not
true.
inside like, why is she talking to a guy at 8 o'clock at night? You know what I mean? Like I get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, close that deal, baby, let's go.
I have to say, because I having been a bonus mom to you guys. So for our listeners, my husband Joe was married before me, and he had 3 kids with his first wife. And Joey is his firstborn son of 5. So there's 6 kids altogether. 5 are boys, 1 is a girl. But I will tell you, and I'm sure Joey will concur, that I think they're all afraid of her more than any of them. Jessica is the meanest of them all, but she's the best. But it was so wild raising 5 boys, over the years. And I feel so blessed now. I have to tell you that the best phone call I ever got, because being a step parent is way harder than being a parent. For anyone who's been a step parent, the best call I ever got was when Joey called me one day and he said, "So, Reed," they call me Reed. He's like, this step parent thing, because he has 2 stepdaughters, right? And he goes, "I just want to call and like really apologize for my behavior as a kid." I was like, there is a God. There's a God. It all comes back to you at some point. But
Yeah.
it's so much fun to get you guys all together. And I know that this summer in June, we mentioned his wife, but they're not. They're going to have a wedding this summer. And so we're all getting together for your guys' wedding in June. And I'm going to have to bring Depends or something because you guys make me laugh so hard. I pee my pants every time. And especially, that's why I've said forever, you need to get a podcast going with your brothers because you put all these boys in a room and it's like a entertainment comedy show of the best of the best. It's awesome.
I think someone would end up in jail if we had a podcast, though. So there's some things that probably shouldn't be said.
That's probably true. There's probably well, now I get to hear some of the stories. I'm like, you guys did what? Like, are you kidding me right now? Like you hear, but
Yeah.
I'm like, they're all grown, so they all survived childhood and somehow made it to adulthood.
Yeah, I got to let the statute of limitations run out on some of the shit that we did. But yeah, I was talking with me and Veto, like we worked very well together. Like her desk is literally right here. I think we're in the same business and the same industry. And she asked me for, loan tips too, because I've been in the business a little bit longer. She's got her thing, I got my thing, and we kind of mutually respect that. But that dynamic, I mean, me and Veto are together like most of the time, and it's I love that. I mean, she went out of town last weekend, and I about had a panic attack because I miss my baby so much. But yeah, but yeah,
Well,
I
so
mean,
you guys have started moving into the direction of doing, more of a spiritual journey, it seems, with, some breath work. So tell me a little bit about how you started going that direction. Like what inspired you to start learning about that? I know that you've struggled over the years, like many have, with anxiety issues and stuff like that. So, and we all have trauma. I mean, everybody on the planet has some trauma that they have to work through. Hopefully a lot of your trauma isn't because of me, but there you go.
no. Breathwork came to me, I think, out of necessity, but it was introduced to me by Preston. Preston. He saw the kind of what I was going through at the time, and he mentioned Wim Hof. Wim Hof is he has the Wim Hof method of breathwork. He's this super jacked, like 60, 70-year-old Icelandic guy that does crazy breath work, crazy breath holds, and then he jumps in a frozen lake. And so back, I guess the story starts where I was. I was, I like kind of idled with anxiety. Like my idol was anxious, intense. And then, that year, this is about probably 2.5 years ago, I was hospitalized multiple times, I think like 8 times in 1 year with panic attacks. And the panic attacks, they mimicked heart attacks. And it was very, very scary, constantly anxious and then thinking I'm going to die. Like, and I'm a big believer in manifesting. I think, people manifest where they're at all the time. We're like antennas, I think everything is frequency. And, so I didn't want to call that into my life, but I was literally sitting there like saying, oh, I'm going to have a heart attack. And, I was having, I was severely depressed. I was having suicidal thoughts at the time, and that was very, very scary to me. Our family, like there's history of suicide, and I've always been, very delicate and, kind of like, how could someone get there? And then I found myself there. I didn't necessarily think that I would do it, but, every single thought is a seed. And I was terrified that it could realize itself someday. You know what I mean? Because I was just in this very super, super dark and negative place. It's not that I wanted to die, but I didn't see life as sustainable. And I was telling myself like I may not be here in a couple of years. I was overweight, close to 300 pounds at the time. Uh, uh, and just unhealthy. I was on drugs. I was, drinking like heavily drinking, smoking cigarettes like crazy. Not because I liked cigarettes at the time, but it was just like my way to kind of just tune out. So
Yeah.
it was terrifying. And it like, me and Veto had a great relationship. I have this beautiful, smoking hot wife that tells me she loves me every day and how good looking I am, even though she was probably lying at the time because I'm a, 300-pound drug addict. That's not too sexy to look at. Right. But, my kids were good. But I was lost, and I didn't have like a direction that I thought I was going to go, or I thought I could go. I didn't see like an out. And it started, I actually did ketamine therapy first prior to breath work, because I was looking for this alternative way to heal. Because when you go to the hospital, they just give you Xanax. They'll give you Valium. And the worst thing you
Yep.
can do to someone with a drug problem is stack more drugs on it. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah. And it was a temporary fix, but I was terrified of, like, let's just do all the drugs in the world and see what works. It was like this cocktail, and it doesn't mix with, alcohol and the other drugs I was doing at the time. So I wanted a way to kind of to heal it. And ketamine is, to be honest, it is a drug. It's like a psychedelic, I think.
There's a
But
lot of research about it though too, that's they're using it in a therapeutic way. I mean, obviously it happens on the street as well, but in the therapeutic environment for it, they're seeing dramatic results with, like veterans and,
mhm,
police and fire. My trauma therapist has done a lot of work with it. And it's pretty fascinating what it's doing to help people. Again, we're talking about in a therapeutic environment, not just, grabbing street drugs. It's
right.
a different arena.
Yeah, I did it in a doctor's office. It was paid by insurance and everything. I had to look it up. And it's like an IV injection. I did like 12 infusions, I think. But it puts you like in a dream state, like you're like that state right before you fall asleep. It increases your neuroplasticity in your brain. I mean, there I was at like 42 years old at the time. I had already made up my mind about the ideas, the path that I was going down. And it's very hard, especially for an adult, to change their mind. But ketamine kind of helped me do that. And then after that, the panic attacks totally went away. I don't think I've had one panic attack since then, since the ketamine. So I know it did something. I can see sometimes where my anxiety can like creep up a little bit more, but now I use, breath work to get out of that. But yeah, so speaking to breath work, it was a very sustainable solution to me for anxiety. Again, I at the time I wanted to get rid of my anxiety completely, but now I actually honor it because I use it as a compass now. Like if I'm anxious about something, I like, okay, why am I anxious? Am I thinking about a deal? And usually I can go, in, and if it is about something, I can either say I can do something about it now, or there's nothing I can do about it, so I just got to let it go. But what breath work does is it's controlled hyperventilation, basically. So you do these breath techniques. It's like, and it can be very painful. It can be painful too, like very uncomfortable when you're activated. You can get like a super tight, in your chest and your jaw, like throughout your body. And then, you do the active breath work for probably about 20-30 minutes. And then we do a breath hold. And so I hold my breath. Sometimes I think the longest I did was like 3 minutes, and then we let it out like with this scream. And 90 breath work has, solfeggio frequency, binaural beats in the background. There's hypnotic suggestion. So it's like this curated journey, and it could be for letting go, healing ancestral trauma, you name it. There's ones for abundance and stuff like that. But when you release that breath and that scream, it's amazing. Your body just goes, you tap into your parasympathetic nervous system. So you can't be anxious in that moment. But the breath work and the breath hold, you're literally taking your body into that fight or flight. So you may be anxious at the time, but you're not going to wait for the anxiety to build up into a panic attack. You're going to take it naturally into that fight or flight because you're depriving your body of oxygen on the breath hold. And then when you're actually doing the breath work, it can be very uncomfortable. So your body goes to that anxious state. So you're not going to wait for the anxiety to do its thing. You're going to take it there already. And then that's how you tap into that parasympathetic nervous system. And it releases, the wonderful chemicals, the ones that, relax you and stuff like that. It can actually release, speaking of like psychedelics, it can release DMT from your pineal gland. It's pretty wild. People they can have profound visualization, hallucination. I've experienced it too, but like when you're breathing, you're like charging your cerebral spinal fluid. And then when you hold your breath, it pressurizes it. And then when you release it, it shoots it up your spine into your pineal gland. and your pineal gland have like these little hair-like cilia on them. And when those get tickled by that fluid, it releases those crazy chemicals. And I find it impossible to be anxious in that moment, and it's been beautiful. It's been profound. A lot of people cry during it. I'm guilty of that as well. There's traumas that I've released that I didn't even know. Like, I'm just sitting there sobbing, and I just honor it because I know something is coming out. Like, it could have been, something. And then there's memories that come up, and it helps. What it did to help me, it helped me forgive myself, because I think that's where a lot of my anxiety was coming from. It wasn't necessarily other people. It started with me. You know what I mean? So I had to forgive myself. I had to love myself. I had to be kind to myself before I can, bring that out to other people, because you can't give what you don't have. Right. So I can't love someone if I don't love myself. You can't hate yourself and love somebody else. It doesn't work, or it's fake. You're faking it, in my opinion. But yeah, that's where it started for me. And then I wanted to turn it into something that I do, because I know where my head was, and I know where other people's heads can be. And if they're that dark, that's a very bad place to be. I mean, because all it does is take time. Suicide terrifies me, but it's not just because of the person; it's the impact that it has on everybody around.
Yeah.
And
Everybody that gets left behind, sadly.
I had to forgive myself for that too, because those feelings, I see my kids now, and I'm like, Jesus, like, what if I, would have? And that's I felt a lot of shame for that. But yeah, that's what it's helped me to do. And everyone, like, we do in-person events here at the house, and they're just so fun. I mean, it's like to see people heal, and like they're just blown away that the medicine's like sitting right here and you can tap into it. It's amazing. And like, to be not to be cliche, but if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. But I like literally believe that now,
Right.
because we do a lot of free sessions in the beginning, and that was just to kind of get the word out. But like, I felt like I was still getting paid, because like I feel like I'm helping somebody else. And we have people that they go all in, and we're just there holding space. Like, I'm not this crazy breath master. I've been doing it for 2 years, and we just hold space for people. Like, I'm still a student. Like, I can still do a session and cry my eyes out, and I think I'll be a student, and as long as I'm doing it. But it's just a beautiful thing, because I literally, like, I didn't think I was going to be here. Like, I probably, if you would ask me 2.5 years ago, and we can schedule the podcast for February 13th of 2025, but there's a good chance I may not show up. Right. But then to have to me, it's like a cure, but it is daily. It's not like anxiety's gone all the time.
Well, I like what you said earlier about using your anxiety as a compass, and because I think that can be a big challenge, is that when that comes up, it's like, okay, well, what is really going on? Like, what am I feeling? What's happening? And where, I mean, the saying that I come up with all the time is life happens by choice or by force, one of the two.
Mhm.
You can either choose to make the changes in your life that you need or want or are required for you to go to that next level, or life will happen by force and you won't have a choice. And so, the older I get and the wiser, more experienced I get, the less I know in some ways. But in some ways, I realize that I, in that moment when I am having anxiety or when I'm stressed out, I have a choice, and either I can choose to do something about it or not. If I choose not to do something about it, then I can't be upset about what those results are, right? Because I made a choice, honestly. I made the
Mhm.
choice not to do something. So life forced me to do it. And that's becoming more and more apparent for me in my life, is to pause, right? When that stuff comes up, is to pause for a moment. And whether that's, doing breath work or whatever that is for you, but to pause for a moment and see what is that compass? What is that telling you? Because that also doesn't lie, right? Like a compass doesn't lie to you. It doesn't say, hey, we think that looks like south, but it's really north. Like a compass doesn't lie. It is what it is. It's like numbers. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that helps create a bit more clarity if you can pause, right? And that word, it's funny that word's been coming up a lot for me lately too, because I did a podcast with Marky, a gal that I've known for a long time. She's a well-known speaker, and she's doing a lot of stuff with AI right now. So she's doing a lot of training and teaching on AI. And we were talking about kind of, the goods and the bad of it, right? There's all the good stuff that's happening from AI. It's become amazing, but the negative, the potential negative. And what came up in that conversation was the importance of pausing. Because if you stop for a moment and you listen and you pay attention, the answers will appear. They'll tell you that's fake, or no, you shouldn't do that. Or look, this breath work that you're doing, you need to take that to the next level, or you need to heal this, or you need to, like you just said earlier, how things pop up and you don't even know what it was, or trauma comes about and you don't even realize that was trauma. So I think there's something about that word that has come up a lot for me lately in the word pause, is like, just take a minute, right? Step back, like sit with it and see what comes up that can give you some guidance, some direction into where to go and what to do with it. Because it's been fun to watch you guys, and a lot, I mean, unfortunately we live a long ways away, but a lot of the stuff that I see that you guys are posting on social media and stuff, it's really fascinating. And I've seen from a distance, the changes that it appears to be making in your life, and it's good to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, and I 100% agree with pausing, and breath work forces you to pause too. And even talking about Xanax, that's a chemical pause. I mean, that's how it doesn't stop the anxiety; it just pauses your emotions.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just awareness, mindfulness. You can go out and ground. Some people work out. That's another way to do it. There's so many mental health benefits to it. Even the cold plunge, that's another one too. Like, it gets you into that moment. It makes you
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far. I'll do the sauna.
the cold
Like,
plunge. It's
I'm
one that
not doing the cold plunge.
it always
Like,
sucks. It
I
always
put
sucks.
my little toes in. I'm like, oh, nope, I'm going to go back to the sauna.
Yeah, I get mine down to about 40. I try to do a cold plunge like once a week, but I haven't done it in about a month. But I have been doing sauna lately. I did some research, and there's like very profound research. I don't know how accurate it is, but it was like 4 times a week for 10 minutes, I believe, reduces your chance of heart attack by like 40%. So it's like,
Well, we have a sauna here, as you
yeah.
probably know. And your dad, it's been interesting because your dad for the last few weeks has been going in there almost every day into the sauna, and we have the red light thing in there. And I just noticed the other day we were walking through Costco. I'm like, man, he's like moving faster, his gait, like he's got more energy. He's not in so much pain all the time. So I do believe that, and I'm sure he could benefit from the cold plunge, but I also don't want him to have a heart attack. So we'll stick with the sauna for the moment. but
Right.
I mean, he is 71, so we have to be a little
Yeah.
more conscientious. But I just think all of that takes us back to, what we were talking about, is that moment to just pause, to just sit. The world is so busy. There's so much happening in life, and, everything is so crazy that I think we need, as a planet, as human beings, to take that time to just take a second and, tune in, connect, and figure out because you will tell, what's going on with you. You know what you need to do. It's just a matter of whether you're going to listen or not. Right.
Yeah, a
And
million
you
percent.
always were a bit of a stubborn child, I will say.
I was. I carried that smoking thing forever. I haven't smoked I'm going on 2 months now.
Awesome.
And yeah, and funny story, like Preston, he told me like he'd hire me to do it for his realtors, like he has this thing called the Forge, and And he brought out this other breathwork guy last time, and he's like, well, Joe, he texted me, he's like, hey, like, don't lie to me if you've been smoking. And I was like, I have, but this was like, I think January 1st. And I was like, but I got a plan to quit. Like, I'm done. And he's like, let me know when you got 30 days and I'll hire you. And like, to me, the potential, like the pain of smoking, like didn't outweigh the potential pleasure of actually doing a corporate gig. And he said, he was like, dude, I'm not hiring the smoking breathwork guy. Like, that makes zero sense, And I was like, fair. That's fair.
That's fair.
Yeah, but the pleasure like far outweighed it. And I was like, and I quit with zero cravings. I had zero cravings. Not even one. I had like a body twitch once, like when I was like, I finished a sandwich and I was like, oh, wait, I don't do that anymore, but I didn't have any sort of, chemical resistance to it. And I think it's because like I identified as a non-smoker. Finally, it took me forever. Like, I haven't enjoyed smoking for years. It's disgusting. I didn't like the way I smelled. I knew it was, killing me. It's like, bad for everything. There's zero things you can say about cigarettes to, make them cool. Right.
Right.
But yeah, and that's the same thing happened when I stopped doing hard drugs. Like the pain was so bad that because I think people are either motivated through their wanting to get
Pleasure,
away
pain.
from pain, yeah, or going towards pleasure. Like the pleasure, like when I put that down, I felt like this like huge weight off of my shoulders. Like, it was like, oh my God, like, you don't have to do that anymore. And I'm not saying I didn't have, relapse or, screw up and stuff like that, but it's that, one day at a time thing, right? Like I used to, when I would relapse in the past, I'd be like, oh, I guess I'm still a piece of shit. I'll just go back all in. But, now if I make a mistake, it's like, that was just a mistake. I can bounce back from that like immediately, and I do the work to do that. And that's like with my mental health journey, I've been doing the same thing. Like, I'm taking what they do in 12 steps, and I'm going to handle this mental health one day at a time. Sometimes it's multiple times a day that I have to do check-ins and groundings and breath work. I do breath work like pretty much all day. Like, I usually do box breathing or something like that. But if my mind goes to an anxious place, I honor it, and then I try to fix it. I do some grounding, but it's one day at a time. And especially when you start working on yourself, I thought it was like this glorious aha moment. I'm saved, I'm fixed, but it actually, my body doubled down on me. Like, my anxiety like doubled because my body was so used to feeling like shit. And then you're trying to feel better. Your body knows, it's like, okay, he's not accepting these chemicals that we usually give him. He's still feeling good. Your body tries to keep you in that comfortable state of, feeling like crap. So it actually doubled down. I mean, there was times I did, challenges with people and building our website for breath work. We're, hosting events. There was times before events that I'm like sitting there, like with like crazy imposter syndrome. Like, who's going to listen to this guy? Like, but it's my mind, that crazy monkey mind telling me, but I use that as a compass too.
Yeah.
I'm doing that with imposter syndrome. Like, now I guarantee, like, I know you get it sometimes. Like, some of the highest level people have it. Like, if you don't get it, you're probably not doing anything, worthwhile. So, here I am trying to write a book, and I'm sitting there like, sometimes I don't want to write because I tell myself like, no one's going to read your book. Like, they're not going to care what you have to say, but I sit there and write anyway. I just knock it out because I know I have to do it. And I know once it's done, somebody's going to read it, it's, hopefully it's a New York Times bestseller and changes the
You know what?
world.
There's a great book you should read. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's The War of Art. I think it's called. The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. You should get that book. It's one of my favorite books. I read it probably 20 years ago. And he talks a lot about that like drunk monkey in your head, of that keeps you from moving into your greatness.
Mm-hmm.
And what I know about you, Joey, is that you have always had it within you. You have always, from the time you were a little boy, you've always had this uh, this thing about you that the world loves. And
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I know that has held you back is you, because you have so much potential, and you're so genuine and kind to people and so humble in so many ways, and it's only you that's holding you back. And so I am excited to see where this takes you. Tell us, as we wrap up today, tell us a little bit more about how people can connect with you with regards to what you're doing with the breath work.
Yeah, absolutely. Disclaimer, if anyone's having like suicidal thoughts, definitely reach out to the suicide hotline. That's, you have to talk to someone. But to connect with me, our website is unconditionalhealing.love. I thought that was pretty cool, not .com,
That is.
.lov. And then we have we're Unconditional Healing on Facebook, and then I'm under Joseph Crespillo on Facebook as well. People can reach out directly to me. My direct number is 915-799-8438 if you want to call me. But we do Zooms. We do in person if you're in the El Paso, Texas area. But the Zoom sessions are very powerful too, because it's literally you cover your eyes and you have your AirPods in. So you do get the same effect. You don't get like the somatic body work that we do like on the in-person, but there are profound benefits. But yeah, I mean, they can reach out to me on those three areas. And I would love to show people what breathwork can do. I do have little freebies that I can send out as well. But yeah, that's about that.
And we'll be sure to put all his contact information in our show notes as well. And I am anxiously awaiting the launch of the Growth Addict podcast, which I know is coming soon.
I still have StreamYard.
And the book, you still have what?
StreamYard. I'm still paying for it. So
yeah. So I might be having to hold him accountable on that. What do you guys think? Post in the comments. Do you want to hear the Growth Addict podcast? I'm going to say yes. So, thank you so much, Joey, for joining us today on Real Estate Real World. I love having you here, and I can't wait to see you and all my grandbabies and Vero in person here coming up. But I'm really proud of you and all that you're doing, and I'm excited to see this next chapter for you in your life.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. And then we'll see you guys in June. I can't believe June is right around the corner.
I know. I got to get our flights booked. So
we literally planned the wedding like we have a year to go. And now it's like, oh my God, we don't.
Yeah, like 4 months. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on Real Estate Real World, where we get to talk to all the cool people and we get to hear about all the new and exciting things that are up and coming in this world. Make sure that you go out and make an amazing path for yourself and shine bright. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in the real estate industry and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes, and while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others to find our podcast for show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry. Also, hop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email to get early advance notice of upcoming podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and go out there and be a part of the elite masterclass and raising the bar on the real estate industry.